Join me as I dive into the story of Job in the Bible and see if I can uncover the true meaning behind his trials and tribulations. Subscribe, like, comment and share. Let's go. The story of Job takes place in the land of Uz, in ancient times. Job was a wealthy man, blessed with a large family, great possessions, and a reputation for righteousness and integrity. He was described as blameless and upright, a man who feared God and shunned evil. Job's prosperity. Job was one of the wealthiest men of the East. He owned thousands of livestock, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys, and had many servants. He had 10 children, 7 sons and 3 daughters. Job would regularly offer burnt sacrifices on behalf of his children, worried that they might have sinned in their hearts. He lived in reverence and humility before God, even amid his blessings. The heavenly court. One day, a scene unfolds in the heavenly realm. The sons of God, angels, come to present themselves before the Lord, and among them is Satan, the accuser. God points out Job's righteousness, but Satan challenges this, suggesting that Job is only faithful because God has blessed and protected him. Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. Job 1:10-11. God allows Satan to test Job, but forbids him from harming Job himself. The first test: loss of possessions and children. In rapid succession, Job loses everything. Sabeans attack and steal his oxen and donkeys, killing his servants. Fire from heaven, possibly lightning, burns up his sheep and more servants. Chaldeans raid and take his camels. A great wind collapses the house where his children are feasting, killing all 10. Despite these unimaginable losses, Job grieves deeply but does not sin. He falls to the ground in worship and says, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Job 1:21. The second test: loss of health. Again, Satan appears before God and argues that Job's faithfulness is because he still has his health. God permits Satan to afflict Job physically but forbids taking his life. Job is struck with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. He sits among ashes, scraping himself with a piece of broken pottery. Even Job's wife, seeing his misery, urges him, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." Job 2:9. But Job replies, "Shall we accept good from God, and not trouble?" Job 2:10. 3 of Job's friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, come to visit him. Initially, they sit with him in silence for 7 days and nights because his suffering is so great. But when they finally speak, their words hurt more than they heal. They argue that Job must have sinned to deserve such suffering. In their view, suffering is always a result of wrongdoing. Each friend takes turns accusing Job of hidden sin and urging him to repent so God might restore him. Job's response. Job defends his innocence. He knows he has not committed sins deserving of such punishment. His heart is filled with confusion, pain, and frustration. He curses the day of his birth and questions why the innocent suffer. He cries out to God for answers, longing for a trial where he can plead his case before the Almighty. Despite everything, Job maintains a basic trust in God. "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him." Job 13:15. Elihu's speech. A younger man named Elihu, who has been listening quietly, becomes angry at both Job and the 3 friends. He rebukes Job for justifying himself rather than God, and he rebukes the friends for failing to give Job real answers. Elihu suggests that suffering can be a means of discipline or a way to draw people closer to God. God speaks. Finally, God himself speaks to Job out of a whirlwind. God does not answer Job's questions directly but instead asks Job a series of questions that highlight Job's limited understanding. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Can you command the morning or cause the rain? Do you understand the movement of the constellations? God's speeches reveal the vastness, complexity, and wonder of creation, and Job's inability to grasp it all. Job's humility and restoration. Confronted with the majesty and mystery of God, Job humbly repents, not because he sinned to cause his suffering, but because he realizes his limited understanding and presumption before God. Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. Job 42:3. God rebukes Job's friends for misrepresenting him and instructs them to offer sacrifices. Job prays for them, and God accepts Job's prayer. In the end, God restores Job's fortunes, giving him twice as much as before. Job has more livestock, more children, 7 sons and 3 daughters again, and he lives a long, full life, seeing his descendants to the 4th generation. Lessons from the story of Job. 1. Suffering is not always a result of personal sin. Job's story proves that not all suffering is punishment for wrongdoing. The righteous may suffer for reasons beyond human understanding. 2. Faithfulness in adversity. Job teaches us to remain faithful to God even when everything is stripped away. True faith persists even without visible blessings. 3. God's ways are beyond human understanding. Human beings cannot fully comprehend God's purposes. Sometimes, we must trust God even when answers are hidden. 4. The importance of humility. Job's humility after God's response shows that the right posture before God is not accusation but trust and reverence. 5. The danger of misjudging others. Job's friends wrongly assumed that Job's suffering was due to sin. We must avoid rushing to judgment when others suffer. 6. The value of honest lament. Job's candid cries to God show that it's not sinful to express pain, grief, and questions honestly to God. 7. The power of intercession. Job's intercessory prayer for his friends, even after they accused him, was accepted by God, showing the power and importance of praying for others. 8. Restoration is possible. Though suffering can be overwhelming, Job's story reminds us that God can restore and bless us beyond what we have lost, in his time and according to his plan. The story of Job offers key insights into the nature of faith, perseverance, and the mystery of suffering. It teaches us that sometimes, we won't get the answers we seek, but we can trust in God's goodness and love. Job's narrative encourages us to hold on to faith, even when life doesn't make sense. If you've been through a tough time or are questioning God's justice, I encourage you to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Check out my other videos on biblical stories and their meanings for more insights into the human experience and the nature of God. Subscribe, like, share and comment below.